Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SB Patrons video today that I'm making for Dinnerhe as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, you'll have noticed that a few things have changed. For one, we have got the green screen back now, so I am part of the ether, which is kind of nice. It looks a little bit more professional than their kind of ambiguous box that I was in before, and I can now stretch across the screen. I should also have a slightly better mic tone. Because I realized what the filters in the back of the System 7B did, primarily because I decided to show a bit of curiosity and not just assume that I knew everything. Today, we're going to be checking out a track from an act named Maroon 5 titled Sunday Morning. This is Dinnerhe's request off of the Songs About Jane 10th Anniversary Edition. Actually, it's a remaster. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's go, man. What do we got? Get the lyrics up there. Lovely coloration to the mix.
Sunday morning, rain is falling. Still some covers share some skin. Clouds are shrouding us in moments unforgettable. You twist to fit the mold that I am in. But things just get so crazy. Living life gets hard to do. And I would gladly hit the road, get up and go if I knew that someday it would lead me back to you. That someday it would lead me back to you. That maybe
I mean, this is one of the best mixes I think I've heard all year.
she is all I see. Come and rest your bones with me. Driving slow on Sunday morning, and I never want to leave.
Like, genuinely.
Fingers trace your every outline. Oh yeah. Paint a picture with my hands. Oh, and back and forth we sway like branches in a storm. Change the weather, still together when it ends. That may be all.
And the way it spreads around the stereo field is tremendous.
Darkness, she is all I see. Come and rest your bones with me. Driving slow on Sunday morning, and I never want to leave. Yeah.
Ba-da-dum. Ba-da-dum. I don't know if you can hear that turntablers in the background as well. There's just so much stuff that you can hear, I think, if you're more focused on the track itself, on not being distracted by anything. Like in a passive environment,
Gets so
perhaps.
crazy, living life gets hard to do. Sunday morning, rain is falling, and I'm calling out to you, saying someday it will bring me back to you. Yeah, find a way to bring myself back home to you. May not know that maybe all I need. Darkness, she is all I see. Come and rest your bones with me. Driving slow on Sunday morning.
Funky, and like jumpy bass line as well. Great groove to it. Great use of claps at place of snare. I like how the bass is becoming more explorative now, very comfortable with the fretboard. I mean, it's just got such tremendous personality to it. I think I really have slept on Maroon 5. You know, I have listened to a bit of their music. I mean, I grew up listening to this. The music was a lot of the time, like from my when I was younger, I think. It's 2002, so I would have been 11 around the time this came out. There's just so much to appreciate, but we're going to talk about it more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion, my review of this track from an act named Maroon 5, titled Sunday Morning After the Songs About Jane 10th Anniversary Edition. Now, in this section, we're going to talk about, or provide an overall song analysis, I suppose, as I'm going to be going back into those pretty heavily in 2026. Now that I've got a bit more of a slightly professional setup, you can also tell that the house has changed. I'm in a different place now. So we're going to be talking about the various facets of this track from an analysis perspective, as well as sort of any applicable constructive critique. And then finally, my overall thoughts from a listening perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? Just having a quick look through the lyrics here. Sunday morning, rain is falling, steal some covers, share some skin, like physical attraction, intimacy, clouds are shrouding us, and mum's unforgettable, you twist to fit the mold that I'm. Yeah, and so there's just a really intense connection there. Come and rest your bones with me, driving slow on Sunday morning. So you get this real sort of sense of feel that they just want to really have each other, and they want to be around each other, and they don't want that moment to end, that Sunday morning. It's a beautiful experience for them. They're not in a hurry to get anywhere. I love the wordplay as well. Fingers trace your every outline. Yeah, paint a picture with my hand and back and forth through sort of branches in the storm. It's wonderful sort of like imagery that is evoked there. There's a classic sort of like required sense of romanticism to it. But I also genuinely feel like peaceful and at ease listening to this. It's just pleasant to listen to how happy they are, or at least how happy the vocalist feels about this person that they're with. And I think that's a rare thing. You don't always get that with songs. Sometimes you just want them to shut up. So I feel like it's just this really intense, special, sort of unique, sort of like time they're spending with this person. In darkness, they are what they can see. There's a physical sort of like intimacy to it, attraction there, but it's also sort of psychological. Like it's a well-rounded thing. And it's just a lovely song. And I think that there'll definitely be an audience for it. A lot of people will be able to relate to it, for sure. I think everyone wants their special someone, unless you're into special someones. The vocals in this track are wonderful. He's very comfortable in his head and chest voice there. Great use of legato passages there for a bit of smoothness, some vibrato occasionally, some vocal fry near the end for a bit of sizzle and kind of spice to it. We had some really incredible jazzy sort of harmonies in those chorus sections there, which had a lot of flavor and worked well alongside the sophistication of the keys. There are also some really kind of like cool bluesy chromatic passages there vocally working alongside the major and minor scales. So the core melodies we chose, they were catchy. There was an interesting rhythm to it as well. We weren't just like rolling with the eighths or kind of quarters there. Da da dum bum 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 ba dum bum. Like it was just really. Like you can tell every line was carefully constructed for effect. There was just so much kind of like micromanaging, I suppose, and to an extent with certain parts. But it was also done so eloquently. You can be sure that they understand their music theory to an advanced level to be able to craft these. And I didn't think that I would like this song as much when I actually sit there to actually actively listen to it. I think this is a track where you can listen to the groove of the drums, the pulse of the keys, the vocals and how they sort of integrate with everything else, and just enjoy the way it sounds. But when you actually sit there and you kind of like think about it, and more that kind of digs at you a little bit, and you appreciate the effort put on. And there are these cool and responsive with the vocals as well. It is these kind of like runs or little legato parts or repeat certain lines. And it's just really neat. It's just really kind of like, they don't take the listener's attention for granted. We're just filling in those spaces. There's adjustments to the dynamic range or intensity of the vocal parts as well there to sort of like elicit certain moods. Some parts are conversation, other parts were calling out. It's just very well handled. Structurally, it starts off with a drum beat and comes in very quickly with the keys, the vocals, the main components. We have verses and choruses and interludes with the brass as well. And like an extended outro section, we're kind of like riffing on it vocally there and doing lots of interesting sort of patterns there. And that's where the vocal fry comes in and really sort of kicks off. We've got this sort of climax as we go through it. It's like a 2-minute track just outside the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, where if it's 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, you might miss some sort of like important context. But if it's over 4 minutes, it might be sort of like overplaying a certain theme. The transitions between these sort of like musical ideas are seamless. We're never left wanting. And there are sometimes bars that are kind of cut back a little bit to sort of like be more surprising when you switch into the brass sort of interlude section. And we trade off to that. We acknowledge it with a little kind of riff on the vocals before ba-bum, ba-bum, bum, ba-bum, bum. But yeah, honestly, it works really well as a pop piece, but the instrumentally, I think, is where it shines alongside the vocals. And I've just noticed that I like that part, or you like that, something like that, from like the lady vocalist in like the verse section there, just her kind of like correspondence or response to the singer. It's just, you can kind of imagine the two of them talking like that. It's really neat. I think the drums have a fantastic kind of like pulse to them. They work well within the quarters to eighths and then the 16ths. You know, instrumentally, we've got a sort of swing feel to it, so a bit bopping around. We play some toms occasionally with some sort of tom or fill passages, but ultimately it's about either working with the hi-hats or the rides to establish a kind of like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and dun 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 dun. Like there's a heavy focus on syncopation from the vocals, and the fact that they're trying to sort of go in between some of the ride hits is just a really fun musical idea. It's almost like we're bouncing between our emotions or our feelings, and like the drummer occasionally does additional hits or kind of like switches things up, or has like a kind of a sudden break to allow the strings to come in and kind of flourish in the space that's provided. We know not to have everything all the time, which is really cool. I like when we allow other elements to have their pace. I also appreciate that the drums do work to come together with certain elements, such as the brass, I think, in the interlude and other parts. We know how to accent with the crash as well to kind of elicit a new sense or a loop. And like, I like that the drums become more intense in like later section there, and like the interlude or like the outro part there, we'll kind of switch those triplets sort of tom fills there, and we really sort of bring it up. I think the bass guitar is fantastic here. Works really neatly alongside the established kind of guitar piano chords within the harmonies. The root notes, you know, clearly follow, but also we explore the fretboard a little bit. Work well inside the relative kind of scales there, but also modally we switch around and sort of like kind of like accent or do little kind of hammer-ons or like kind of like sort of double bass rolls where needed. And we do keep a sense of rhythmic kind of sensibility with the drums and the kick as well, which is really neat. You know, it's just great that we've got that sort of cohesion there. Keys don't just play extended chords there, which would be sort of proportionate for the style of music there. We articulate with arpeggios and sort of decorate it in the higher end with the right sort of like hand really neatly. But we're relatively simplistic when we need to in the vocals or the focal point, and other points when things are a bit louder, we have more time to kind of hold the chords or accent certain parts that work alongside vocally. There is rhythmic sort of like connection with those to kind of pull focus to the listener on those words. I think the wicka 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 with the guitars with the wah pedal is a fantastic choice there. I think just as a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, and it's just a great sort of counter rhythm to what's going on with the ride cymbals or hi-hats in certain parts, and when it does go together with the 16th offbeat hi-hats, it's neat, or the rides. I think, you know, having the wicka wicka guitar not the entire time but a sometimes thing is just an additional interesting rhythmic device. The organs kind of pull a counter to that, where those notes hold but they've got vibrato, so they kind of flutter like the heartstrings, I suppose. And they're just a great sort of contrast, I think, to the keys being similar instruments, performing similar, or having similar or different textures or kind of like timbres to them. And I think with everything else trying to pull its weight with the quarters, eighths, or sixteenths, to have the organ simply kind of like stand there and be a constant, an additional point of interest or mood enhancer in the chorus, just a sensible decision there. I think finally the brass that we have in the interlude is just tremendous. You can hear it kind of really sort of like elevate, especially with the bounciness of those parts within the interlude section, and just the fact that they're so tight just shows that they knew the exact point where they needed to maybe sort of be a little bit less predictable with what was going on with the vocal patterns there. You know, the singer had said as much as he needed to, wanted to have a sort of a more kind of like dramatic sort of like interpretation there, but it's still at the same time it's kind of fun. And then when everything else comes in, they are still in the undertow there, kind of pulling their weight there, and it's like all the different instruments or elements that we've been introduced to prior come together and they culminate, and it's just a wonderful celebration of the feelings and expressions that I've had so far. You even got that turntablism that I mentioned as well, the wicka wickas, and you don't always get them done in a way that's tasteful. There was a lot of that kind of stuff going on, especially not that it's necessarily related genre-wise, but like the new metal stuff, the kind of DJing. It was great to have the kind of scratching there, just as a kind of a sort of like a palate cleanser underneath the brass. It's just an interesting combination of elements there that's a bit less common. It's just fun. I suppose they were just exploring fun sounds there as well. They were enjoying their time making this track and producing it. And again, when you have less of a need for the drummer to be more bombastic, like having that be an extra bit of kind of like spice in the mix is sensible. I also should note the clapping. I love the clapping in those chorus parts there. I think it's just a great sort of like it sounds like everyone's celebrating the love that they have for each other, the appreciation. Everyone's just in good spirits, and it's just really pleasant to hear that we didn't just rely on the snare there. It's almost sort of, I sound like I'm glazing disproportionately. It is kind of inspirational, especially when I've just listened to a lot of Maroon 5's music and just not really sort of necessarily appreciated it. I do like some of their older stuff for decisions like these, and it kind of makes me a little bit want to listen through the rest of the album, but not much, because I'm still not a massive fan of them. But I've had it slightly more in the space of I'm enjoying Maroon 5 at least more than I did before. But just the clapping was fun. It just kind of gives sort of a room aesthetic, like everyone's there sort of like enjoying it with you. And I think sort of like the fade out at the end is just a great sort of production decision there, just having everyone kind of like riff off into the moonlight, or rather the morning, because it's a dream for them, right? They've just woken up from their dream, or rather they want to stay within it. Thematically, I think that it mostly resides or revolves around some major extendeds which elicit it's not a negative sounding track from a musical perspective or a harmonic perspective. There are some bluesy passages, I think, for how cool they sound, rather than to elicit a sense of uncertainty or kind of like sadness. It's more, we're just trying to sort of add a sort of a kind of a happiness that's not generic or cliched. It's not just puppy love, it's something better than that, is the way I kind of like to interpret it. And so ultimately, again, the overall build you have there with the quietness of some parts and the loudness, kind of like especially near the end when things sort of start to build up, you just know they've made a decision by the end. And I think just ultimately the jazzy stylings, again, of the bass guitars, the keys, the organs, the guitars, the drums, all of the different ingredients within this mix are enhanced by the fact that it's just a really proficient technical performance without a note out of place. And it's just incredibly satisfying to listen to, because you just feel like you're in safe hands within the first 30 seconds. The studio production I think it's just tremendous. I love how the different vocal takes are layered, different harmonies and main parts and sides and lady vocals, the guitars, bass, drums, organs, keys, turntablism, brass. It just all these different parts are just wonderfully leveled within the mix. There's no weird resonances within the frequency spectrum or the stereo field, and now I actually have my left hand here and my right hand here, because I've made some other changes to try and make these videos make more sense from a visual perspective. But just wonderful, stunning stuff, really stunning stuff. I adore what we're trying to accomplish in terms of the clarity of the vocal performance as well. It doesn't sound overproduced. They can just clearly sing. The fry or the range of the intensity of the expression is captured well. It helps that, again, it is really well played. You can tell everyone was sort of covering their own instruments. But yeah, honestly, dynamic range of days, nice fade out at the end with the automation of the volume, the band sort of fading out. And it's nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression element is handled. Ultimately just a really sensational song that I have a lot of love for. I know this has been a longer review. I'm still kind of getting back to the swing of things, or maybe there's just a lot of positive stuff I had to say about it. What I will note, though, just before I finish, is from a general listener's perspective, because there's no real applicable constructive critique, I just wish that I don't know how Maroon 5 could have kept making music like this, because I feel like they'd kind of done the best they could with that part. They wanted a new direction, and I don't really blame them for trying to try new styles, but I just feel like there was just a fun that they were having with this song. There was a kind of maybe a beginner's mindset in terms of releasing studio albums where they just hadn't maybe done it before. I don't know if this is the first album or not, but it just seemed like they took more risks with this one. And it does make me wonder whether the rest of the album is like this, but either way, it was just pleasant to listen to, and my mind has been changed on Maroon 5 to an extent. Still don't love him, but I quite like him. I like the song anyways. But thank you for watching my review of this track from an acts named Maroon 5 titled Sunday Morning off of the Songs About Jane 10th Anniversary Edition album. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know that it's just Songs About Jane, that this is a remaster, I suppose, or the extra edition, just you know what I mean. But if you enjoyed this track, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and a Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.